Daycare workers of Reddit. What is the most shocking family secret you have been told by a 3-year-old? With a group of 3-year-olds we were coloring paper ties for Father's Day and talking about what their dads like to do. As the kids were calling out their dads' hobbies, one little girl had an epiphany. She gasped and shouted in excitement, "I have a dad." She had recently been adopted by her foster parents. I used to work at a church during the summer, and one time a little boy just up and told me as we were walking to chapel that his daddy spanks his mommy with a wooden spoon after they go to bed. Obviously nothing illegal here, but it was a funny story and the parents were informed that their little angel knew of their shenanigans and to have a talk with him. You should have a talk with your son. What? Why? What's wrong? It's for church, honey. Next. This isn't exactly scandalous. The shocking things I have heard usually involve abuse. We had a family from Texas move to the daycare I worked at in Illinois. The boy would try and tell us stories, but we never could fully get all the details for it to make sense. It would usually go like this. Boy, you know who's bad? Me. Who is bad? Boy. The black man. Me. Who? Boy. The black man is bad. He hurts people. Me. What man? Why does he hurt people? Boy. The black man. He's scary. After a few weeks of this, the boy was the one to always bring the black man topic up. I finally was able to discover that the black man was Darth Vader. I had assumed that perhaps this southern family had a streak of racism, but it just turned out I was prejudiced against southerners. Not a daycare worker, but, I used to have a tax practice. A client came into my office to drop off his tax paperwork with his 5 kids, ages 3-10, in tow. He said he needed to go run an errand and left, leaving the kids in my office for me to babysit while I worked on his taxes. The kids were shy, quiet and well behaved, but the youngest finally started a conversation with me. "My daddy hits my mommy. The fact that he dumped his children on you was good foreshadowing on his awfulness." Not really a shocking secret, but it got a laugh out of me. I had my preschoolers rounded up for circle time. Going off their interests of the day, I decided to ask who was a boy and who was a girl, since that's what happened to be the one thing every 3-year-old cared about that day. Through the sea of children I hear a couple responses. "I'm a boy. I'm a girl," etc. Then out of nowhere all the way in the back I hear, "I'm black." He sure was. God, I miss that class. Good times. What is your gender? Male, female, X, black. When my son was 3 I bought my wife Titanic on video. Yes, it was a long time ago. For her birthday. He asked if he could watch it after nursery school. We said that it wasn't really a film for children. It was a film for grown-ups, like mummy and daddy. When I picked him up later, his nursery teacher was stifling her laughter as he had been telling everyone all day that it was his mummy's birthday that day and that daddy had bought mummy a special video that only mummies and daddies could watch. This reminds me of my daughter, 5 at the time, yelling at me in the car one time because I was drinking and driving and she heard that you can hurt people and go to jail for that. I was drinking a bottle of iced tea. This thread making me terrified to have kids. Little kid, just kind of babbling age. She couldn't talk properly, but could say a few words. She was playing in the little playhouse and I heard her yell very clearly, "Get out of my house, rat bastard." I wonder where she picked that up. I teach 2-year-olds, and we were asking the kids what their parents' names were, just to see if they knew. I asked a little boy, "What's mommy's name?" He says, "Michelle." Then I asked what's daddy's name, and he looks confused, as if he's trying to figure out the answer, but can't. So I ask, "What does mommy call daddy?" assuming he would say John. Instead he looked up at me and says, "Big Papa." I couldn't help but bust out laughing. I was a little keener in kindergarten and thought I knew everything. One day we had to make a family tree or something and I had absolutely no idea what my parents' names actually were. They made fun of me when I asked. I think I cried. Good times. No, seriously, it was a pretty dumb kid moment. I'd laugh at me too. I don't know if this counts. But a 3-year-old told me he had belly aches every day because mommy gave him too much sleepy juice. I said what? He didn't know. I brought it up to her and she said like it was all normal and fine, even with a little laugh. Yeah, sometimes I give him a little bit too much NyQuil because a little it doesn't sleep, and I was like, no child that age should have any NyQuil. She laughed it off and said, oh, he's been getting it since he was a year old. Nothing bad has happened. And on top of that, the kids always came in smelling like strong weed. CPS was called. Liver damage though. Yeah, but he looked okay, so it's fine, right, son? Mum, the doctor says I have a cancerous tumor in my head. I don't feel good. Mom. Oh, it's okay, you look fine. You're fine. I once had a little girl tell me she saw daddy licking mommy like a doggy. That was hilarious and awkward. There were a handful of really sad cases where children would disclose neglect or abuse. One girl in particular had a meltdown one day when she had an accident in her underwear. Turned out that her mum would slap her around just gently enough to not leave a mark and lock her in a closet when she misbehaved, which included accidents. Needless to say, we reported the mother to CPS and did a rush job washing the girl's clothing so she could go home in the same clothes she wore to school, without her mum knowing about the accident. Lots of kids spilling the beans on new pregnancies or divorces, arguments between parents, or infidelity. Kids see and hear a lot, and they tend to have incredibly good memory for that kind of stuff. I'm just going to add that they seem to have a pretty good memory in general. I now just ask my almost 3-year-old daughter where I put whatever I'm trying to find, and she always knows where it is, whether it's my keys, wallet, or the remote. My son once told his class and teacher that daddy drinks beer every morning. It was Pepsi. He did not know the difference. I used to tell people about how my dad would drink and drive. It was water. I dated a girl with 2 kids. I was watching them while she went to the doctor. She had a serious medical problem and she wanted the kids to not be there and see her all stress out. Was watching Toy Story with her 3-year-old daughter. I guess the daughter started understanding that her mum and I are more than friends. She said, "Would you hit mama?" I was shocked and I said, "Of course not. What put that idea in your head?" And she teared up and said my daddy used to hit her. And she started crying. I just did my best. I explained to her that I would never hurt any of them and how people who love each other should behave, and that her dad had a sickness that caused him to act strangely. He was an addict. I got her a popsicle and she calmed down as Buzz Lightyear and Woody were flying into the car. I was aware that their dad hit their mom, but I didn't know the daughter witnessed it or would even remember. My grandma owns a home daycare, and a female toddler that she babysat decided to try and pull down a male toddler's pants and kiss his pee-pee. My grandma immediately asked her where she learned that, and she said my daddy. My grandma reported it and an investigation was done, and her family was actually very grateful that she did it. Even her dad. An investigation was done and they found nothing wrong and the parents 100% cooperated. Kids sometimes just say odd things, but they were glad to know that my grandma takes those sorts of things seriously. So I guess it's not a family secret, but my grandma certainly thought it could have been at the time. She probably just walked in on her parents at some point. When my daughter was 2, I had her little brother. Sometime when he was around 9 months old, she got pretty sick of him, and she was also in her daddy is king phase. So, she would go around saying, "Daddy is my daddy, but he's not little brother's daddy." I always wondered if she spread that rumor at daycare as well. Not a secret and not a daycare worker, but I do work with young children at a private tutoring company. But a little girl, just turned 6, at my workplace once turned to another girl who was being disruptive and calmly said, "Go and see a therapist, darling. You sound like you need one." It was hilarious at the time, but also kinda sad that the girl had heard that phrase often enough to be able to parrot it during an argument. This is why 6-year-olds shouldn't be allowed to watch RuPaul's Drag Race. Shady. Little. Itches. They tell me everything. If you lie to your daycare worker, your child will spill the beans. I have lots of 3-year-olds struggling with potty training. Every single parent will tell me they're working with the child at home. Your kid will tell me if that's true or if you're just putting them in diaper as soon as you get home. Biggest thing I've been told. One little girl mentioned how her grandma tries to breastfeed her. Her grandma picked her up every day from daycare and had her just about all afternoon with her, alone. We called parents and CPS. An investigation was done and grandma admitted to holding her like she was nursing, but claimed they were just cuddling. From my conversation with the little one, it sounded like it was definitely going on. She was really detailed for an almost 3-year-old. Grandma walked away unscathed and still picked little girl up from daycare regularly. If you lie to your daycare worker, your child will spill the beans. Man, too true. I worked as a martial arts instructor for years, and one of our programs was for young kids, like 3-5 years old. Those littlets lived to knock on their parents to us. My mommy threw trash out of the car window on the way here. It was awesome.